And a welcome to Habs Unfiltered, episode 177. I'm your host, Blaine Putney. I'm joined now by my co-hosts, Matt Smith
Afternoon.
and Treg Wilson.
Good afternoon.
We are recording. It is Thursday evening, the 29th of July, the day after free agent frenzy. Things are still happening, so we'll just get caught up on what has happened so far. We are going to In this episode, we're not going to discuss Molson's letter or sponsors or any of that kind of stuff. We're going to stick solely to the hockey aspect. We'll tackle those subjects in our next episode when we have some more time, because the three of us are all pretty busy at this time of year. Our holidays and our families, and there's a lot of a lot of family time that we got to get caught up on. So we'll just dive into it for this episode. We're going to talk about the free agents that have signed and have left. So why don't we begin with those who showed up? We will start with David Savard. So Matt, give us your thoughts on the surprise arrival of David Savard.
I think we all knew that this one was coming. Everyone was talking about it. You needed a defenseman to fill Weber's shoes. I don't think that this is really the one that does it because of the lack of offense that comes from Savard. But he's a steady, physical, stay-at-home defenseman. He'll provide a little bit of offense here and there, but he's more or less another guy that's going to be like a Sherratt or an Edmondson. Maybe just
that is an aspect of Weber's game that's going to be missing.
That's true, but he's also not going to be. He's not going to be the guy that's going to be jumping up into the power play and stuff like that. So
no,
that's why I kind of see why they went after Hoffman and everything like that. But I like David Savard. He's going to be a minute eater. He's going to provide some leadership to the team that has now lost quite a bit of it, and I think that. It's a good pickup. I like the contract. If they got him for the same amount as both the guys I just mentioned. So
it's the exact same contract Edmondson signed last year.
Yeah. So I welcome him to the team. Hopefully he shines in Montreal and he's reunited with one of his old teammates in Josh Anderson. So hopefully there's a little bit of familiarity there, and he does well with his time with the Canadiens.
He also he left some money on the table. There were other offers that he was being given, and he turned them down to take less money in Montreal. So that it shows that Montreal is becoming more of a destination. I'm sure it helped that he and his wife are from the area, and they wanted to bring their kids into that culture, into that region. So still, he took less money, and I see that as a positive. And Treg, what are your thoughts?
Well, he's not going to replace Weber. No one's going to replace Weber, but he's going to replace Weber on the penalty kill. So you got to look at Savard as the guy that's going to be in Weber's spot on the penalty kill. You're going to see Edmondson and Petrie take a bigger role as the top two defensemen in the instead of Sherratt and Weber. I think it's going to be Petrie and Edmondson. Could be wrong. I mean, they could throw Sherratt in with him, but I think they paired off well together last year. You'll see Sherratt, I think, with Savard. And Savard's going to give you 20 to 23 minutes a game. He averaged 20 minutes with Tampa. He's not going to lose you a game. He's not going to win you a game, but he's just going to be I'm expecting an Edmondson-type player where he's just going to be a solid defenseman through the entire season.
And he's going to eat up those defensive minutes that they lost with Weber. That's how he's replacing him. He's going to do the penalty kill. He's going to play that physical game, clear the front of the net. People were worried about, how do we replace the number one defenseman? And we've said it many times on this show. Weber was not the number one defenseman anymore. It was Petrie. So Savard's really just replacing their main player on the second pair, and Savard's also a good complementary player to younger puck movers, and Romanov fits into that really well. So I wouldn't be surprised if those two are a pairing, so he can mentor Romanov a little bit and kind of shelter him to let Romanov do what he does.
And Savard's not a bad puck mover himself.
He's good for his pass.
Yeah, he's not like he's no Mete, but he's not a bad puck mover.
No, I mean he needs to be paired up with a guy who's mobile. And he can actually make a decent first pass. It's just he's not a puck moving defenseman.
No.
There's no question about that. And the need is still there. So maybe this points to Romanov getting a bigger role, or they're setting him up to allow him to take on a bigger role.
Or Norlinder making the team off in the offseason.
That's a good point. They did.
That was mentioned by Bergevin yesterday. So
yeah. So he's going to have every chance to make the team right out of camp. I don't expect it.
No, neither do I. But it was brought up.
They also have Weidman moving on to the next free agent signing. That was a complete surprise for those who can't see my facial expressions. That's pure sarcasm. So Chris Weidman comes in from the KHL. People may recognize the name. He played for the Ottawa Senators. He just Ubered his way down to the Canadiens. And someone got the joke, but not Matt. Matt missed that one.
I just shook my head. I
personally don't see Weidman being any more than a 6th, 7th defenseman.
And that's what he is. He's just depth.
Yeah. Although he did lead the KHL, I think, in scoring for defensemen. But
yes. And he won their Defenseman of the Year award.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe he changed his game around. The KHL isn't quite the NHL, but he'll be a good. He'll be like play the Kulak role, I think, this season. And you'll probably see Kulak as your regular 5-6 defenseman. That's where I see it anyway.
Yeah, especially now that Merrill just signed with Minnesota. As we're talking, Merrill just signed with Minnesota. So that's a huge loss, I know, to a lot of fans out there. The mullet is gone. The day the mullet left.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, it's just depth. So that's another depth defenseman that's gone. People tend to forget as well that Brett Kulak is still on the roster. So he could be another guy that they put in on a third pairing, and it could be Romanov pairing up with Sherratt.
I will say this too with Weidman. He did have 31 points in 53 games with San Diego in the AHL last year. So
before. He was in KHL last year.
No, I meant the year before, 2019-20.
Yeah.
So he in lesser leagues, he seems to do really well.
He's a depth puck mover.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
He had his highest points in the NHL was 2016-17. He had 17 points in 76 games.
He's a slightly more productive Mete.
Yes, I'll give you that. And better defender than Mete.
Yes, he is actually a better defenseman on the defensive side. Absolutely. But it's still, we're looking at a guy who's going to be sitting in the press box at a number 7 and used to step into a number 6 role when needed.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. The next surprise signing is Cedric Paquette, who signed a 1-year, $950,000 deal. He came over from the bunch of jerks, the Carolina Hurricanes. So he fills a couple of things. There's a need for an energy player. Check. They needed someone who can fill in a role as a 12th, 13th forward. Check. He's from the area. Check. So, I mean, it's a decent signing. At best, a 4th line player he plays a physical brand of hockey. He can win some faceoffs. He can play on the wing. He's versatile. He can come in and out of the lineup. He won't cause any problems in the room. And from his press conference yesterday, absolutely wants to be in Montreal.
He says he'll go through a wall for the team.
He's the new Douglas Murray.
He's going to give good depth at center anyway, like especially when you have three young guys that are probably taking over the top three spots if they don't make any more moves. So he'll give you that veteran kind of presence, and he can play the wing if need be. So he can play, even though Montreal right now went from having barely any wingers to having a whole shit ton of wingers.
Yes. Yeah. And there's still some that need to be signed in Lehkonen.
Yeah. I think it's a good move. Like I said, I don't think he'll be any more than a fourth line player. Maybe step up every once in a while on the third line if need be. He can kill penalties if you really need him to, although I don't think they'll need him. But yeah, a good depth signing.
Now, it looks like this contract kind of pushed out who was someone who became a fan favorite, and that's Corey Perry, who left for Tampa Bay, signing a 2-year deal for $1 million per year, according to ESPN.
Apparently, Bergevin had an offer sent to him.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume he had it was a 1-year deal. And
from what's come out in the last couple hours, yeah, it was a 1-year deal around the same money.
Yeah.
There were two things to that. So he was missing that second year, and there was no guarantee that he was going to be given a spot on the roster, a playing spot. So he was going to have to battle it out with Paquette for that 12th position. Whereas in Tampa, because of the cap, he's guaranteed a spot. They lost an entire third freaking line, for God's sakes.
I just think he wanted another chance to win a cup, and he went to a spot that
pretty good chance.
Once again got helped out by another franchise and got bailed out for their cap, and now they're sitting on Brent Seabrook's contract, and you got $6.87 million of dead cap space, and his contract goes for another, I think, 3 years. So
they're going to use it.
Good on Brisebois for doing it, but
that's his deadline cap right there.
We've talked about this multiple times, and why do teams go out and help these teams out? But Chicago jumped in and put on the prom dress and saved the day, I guess. But it is what it is.
Well, I mean,
but yeah, like you look at Corey Perry, and like everyone thought Corey Perry was coming back, and I would have obviously welcomed him back, but he signed a value contract, let's just call it that, with Tampa for the second year, and a guy like Bogosian did the same thing. Bogosian signed a 3-year deal, making $850K.
Yeah.
So these guys are going to these destinations now. We're probably going to see it within a few other teams as well, signing these cheap contracts, just trying to tank up some of these teams to do a cup run.
Well, it's not going to be a surprise to me if we see depth players signing term deals over the next couple of years.
Yep.
I wouldn't have signed Perry to 2 years. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't have.
I mean, they could easily waive him in the second year and not have a count against the cap.
They could, but
at $1 million, there's no risk.
No, but you still got $1 million for 2 years. I don't know. You get Suzuki's contract coming up. You get a bunch of other little things coming up. I wouldn't have signed him for 2 years.
And
that's
I totally understand.
Preference.
Yeah, I totally understand why the Canadians went with 1 year versus 2, and Tampa going with their 2 years. And I know people are saying, well, everyone's giving them, handing them favors, but they lost Yanni Gourde, they lost Johnson, they lost their entire third line.
Yeah, but they didn't lose Johnson. They traded Johnson for that contract.
Yeah,
and they were looking to get rid of Johnson for a long time
for the cap space, not because of his talents. So. He was their fourth line center. Johnson was a fourth line center there. It's no wonder they were as deep as they were. Savard was a third pairing defenseman.
So why hasn't Montreal given Byron to Chicago for nothing yet? I'm curious. I just want to know why.
That's why the league would probably step in and be like, "Oh, you can't do that."
Well, everyone else is doing. Look at Arizona.
I know.
Look what Seattle did with Vitek.
Yeah. Look at Arizona. Arizona got 3 players and sent nothing back in return.
Yeah.
No, but they traded away cap space.
Cap space, yeah.
Which is it's basically its weight in gold. So does Perry leaving mean that Tampa's going to lose the next 2 Stanley Cup Finals in a row? I mean, Corey Perry.
Hopefully.
If you can't beat him, join him.
Yeah. and drag them down with you to the, losing the Stanley Cup final yet again and again.
I mean, I
He's
get
the-
why people are upset about Perry, but
Yeah.
I don't see it as that huge. Personally, I don't see it as that huge.
Well, I mean, you lump losing Perry
Leadership.
in. It's the leadership. You lost Weber, you lose Perry. Even Deneau, who we're going to get into now, decided, screw you, Montreal. I'm going to take an extra $3 million over a 6-year period and go play in LA, where the sun's shining all the time. Nobody knows who the hell I am. And there's no difference between what I'm doing here and what I'm doing there, except for more money.
Well, the funny thing I find funny with that, Stefan Fissé put out a little. If anyone doesn't remember that name, he was a goaltender for the Quebec Nordiques and played 3 games for the Montreal Canadiens.
Traitor.
He said that he wanted to go there because he felt he wasn't going to get the offensive role in Montreal that he wanted. Well, I don't know where you're going to get the offensive role in LA with Kopitar, Byfield, and all these other.
Turcotte's coming up.
Turcotte, that guy starts with a V. Velarde. Sorry, you're there to shut down McDavid and all the other guys in that division. You're not there to score goals.
Hey, he said he was. They appreciated him more in LA, and by that I think he means they wanted to pay me more because the role he's going to get. You're right. He's going to get the exact same role in LA as he would anywhere else.
He'll start as a second line center and end up as the third or fourth line center by the end of his contract.
If they make the playoffs, he's down in the third line, guaranteed. And they might. The Pacific is pretty weak, so they might. Yeah. So I wish him well.
I do too. I like Deneau. I liked him when he was here, but I don't think Deneau understands what his actual role is in the NHL, and
he wants more.
I wish him well, but his little exit speech and all that kind of stuff, and reading up on it, it's like, oh, they didn't this, they didn't that, and I see myself as this, and as Treg says, you're going to get there, and you might start that way. It isn't going to end that way. And he can't say he didn't get the minutes. He was getting the top minutes against the top players and everything like that. Yet the way he plays hockey is more of a defensive style. He's not the one that's driving the play on the offense, and he had some very good offensive players playing with him, and 5-on-5 they were a very good line.
Well, I mean, he was given 2 wingers, one that scores 25 goals a year, another that scores 30 goals a year, and he was still unable to put up big points. So I don't know where the offense is going to be coming from for him, but he's going to try.
He maxed out at like 53 points was the highest point total, and 12 goals.
13.
Goals.
Come on, man.
So, I mean, I'm fine with the center not being a 20-goal scorer, but if you have 2 wingers that are going to score anywhere from 25 to 30 goals a season, you should be up in the 60, 70 point range if you're centering them.
Yeah. And you're not going to get that with the roster that LA has right now.
Not even as a second line center.
No.
But
and
anyway,
I wasn't surprised that he decided to leave. I mean, he turned down the offer from the Canadiens for that was $5 million over 6 for 6 years.
5 for 5, I think, wasn't it? No, 5 for 6. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
5 for 6. He turned it down, and then even at the end of the season, it was still on the table, and he wanted to test anyway. So I'm like, yeah, he's probably gone.
I thought $5 million was a bit too much for Deneau for what it was. And 5.5. I'm glad Montreal didn't up their. I mean, Bergevin is pretty stubborn. He's pretty much, here's the contract, take it or leave it.
Well, he's looking ahead.
He's looking ahead.
He's looking ahead, and we talked about this, I think, in the last episode. I was at about 4 million for him. You were at about 4.5 at the max. Right. So, and Matt, I think you were with us on that.
Yeah, 4.5,
well.
5. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know, the term, when you're given 6 years, you don't want to be giving more money than you feel that the role he's going to play 3 years down the line. So,
especially if Kotkaniemi breaks out, and then you have Byron's $3.5 million, Armia's $3.4 million, and his $5 million all sitting on the bottom 9.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because Suzuki's going to need a contract next year. They still have to sign Kotkaniemi, who hasn't signed his deal yet, which I'm thinking is going to be a 2-year bridge deal anyway, around 2.5 to 3, somewhere
I
in there.
figure him and Lehkonen are going to get similar deals. Lehkonen probably a bit less than what Kotkaniemi is going to get.
I figure they're going to split about $5 million between the two of them.
Yeah.
In some way, like 5 to 5.5 split between the two. That's my expectation. And yeah, and Kotkaniemi, they're expecting him to take a step forward next year, where they're going to put him into a second line role. I mean, here's a guy who, if you compare him to Couturier, he's put up similar point totals in his first few seasons, and Couturier is a similar build, a similar style. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Kotkaniemi probably take a 45-point season, play a little bit more two-way, take on some of that role. But this kind of leaves the door open too, that I'm expecting Bergevin to go after a center.
Yep.
I totally think he kind of hinted that he was going to try to find more offense or more in the way of a trade. I think he's going to go after center. I think he might even try to go after another defenseman, but we'll see.
Yeah, so between the three centers that are returning, I'm not counting Paquette as a center right now. We're not sure what he's going to play yet. But let's say Poehling gets moved up. He's got 0 years as a center. And then between the other three, Evans, KK, and Suzuki, we're looking at 3, 4, 5, 6 years total. So you got 6 years of experience spread across your entire center depth. I can almost guarantee that there's going to be maybe even Eric Stahl comes back. Like, it's just, he's going to get someone.
No, it's quite possible, and it's going to be like a fourth. It's going to be like a Nate Thompson type role. It's going to be a which I think Cedric Paquette is kind of in right now, but
and he's their most experienced centerman at this point.
And I think it's just going to be more for insurance in case KK, because honestly, Suzuki, I'm not worried about. I'm not worried about Suzuki whatsoever. I think Suzuki's going to come into his own, and I think we're going to have a maybe the next Patrice Bergeron in Suzuki. I mean, he plays the same style with him. His defensive game's coming along. He just got to start winning faceoffs. Really, that's the only part of Suzuki's game that's shitting the bed is the faceoffs.
The only positive face-off guy out of the bunch is Paquette right now. So
yeah.
That's someone I think they're going to go look after. I know there's some people that feel that face-offs don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but this management team gives a shit about face-offs. So they're going to be finding that. Our personal beliefs don't matter. So if we're projecting what we believe onto the team, we're going to be disappointed all the time. We got to look at how they're going to be doing it. And in this case, they're looking for a face-off guy.
I would have liked and got sad, but he signed with the Blues. So
yeah, apparently the Canadians weren't offering this the same term, I guess.
Yeah, it's a little over 4 million, 5 years, a little over 4 million a year, 22.5 million.
And they had that cap space because Mike Hoffman wasn't there anymore. And Matt, where did Mike Hoffman go?
Montreal.
Really? Mike Hoffman went to Montreal. Tell us more.
Well, this was one that some people wanted, some people didn't. Every time you talk about Hoffman, people are going to bring up his girlfriend and all the stuff that happened with
Don't tell his wife.
Erik Karlsson, all that kind of stuff, right? I won't get into that right now. In the player, you get a guy that really excels on the power play. He sets up shop and he just blasts shots on that. So they're going to use him hopefully in a Weber type role, but not in a Weber type role.
I think he's replacing Weber's shot.
But to be the predictable, I don't want them to be that predictable on their power play. But 17 goals last year, 7 on the power play. Year before, 29 goals, 11 on the power play. Year before, 36, 17 on the power play. So the guy's got a very good shot. He's got a very good release. His defensive game is definitely a work in progress. When you play that style of game, that's usually what ends up happening. But this is a guy that's going to give you at least 20 goals, maybe even 30. I don't mind the contract. Um, they apparently they were very close with St. Louis, and Montreal kind of came into the last second and said, "Hey, we'll give you a little bit more." So I don't really like the fact that he's making a little bit more than Toffoli, but it's only 250K more. It's not a million more, so I can deal with it.
It's 1 year less than what Toffoli got too. So
Yeah. So you know what? 3-year deal. I'll take it. He can play both wings, and it'll provide a guy like Suzuki options. It'll provide a guy like Evans options. It'll provide a guy like Kakaniemi options. The only thing is, other than Suzuki, I'm not gonna say I'm afraid, but like who's gonna pass the puck to these guys? Kakaniemi can play up to a certain point, but he goes stretches of games where he does nothing. And if they're trying to rely on him as a second line center, that's a little bit of a red flag. And then people are talking about bringing Paling up. Paling is very unproven, and we can talk about all we want about how Paling did this year and how he's looked and everything like that. But another guy, very much injury prone player. He put up very good points last year though, and he looked very good. And he looked like he took the next step at the AHL level. Is that going to translate into the NHL? Who knows?
well, and here's the thing: there was some chatter online about comparing this offseason to the 2017 offseason and how the exodus of players in 2017 forced the Canadians' hand to bring in lesser replacements. I don't see that this year. Weber went down. We've lost Weber. To replace his role, they bring in Savard. We've talked about him. Savard covers the defensive side. Then they bring in Hoffman, who on the power play is going to be that shooter, probably up on the point, who's going to move up and down. He's going to play it differently than Weber.
So they brought in, so in my opinion, they brought in Hoffman for the power play,
Yeah.
and they also brought him in mostly to replace Tatar.
Yes.
But they're going to lose Tatar's defensive game.
That's right.
So it's a little bit of a give and take, right?
But I'm okay with that because Huffman's going to score more than Tatar would.
He should.
Tatar's years in Montreal are a bit of an outlier for his career.
Yeah.
His point total kind of went up, but he also played more minutes than what he did everywhere else that he played. Huffman's going to now give you a shot. If you put him on the same power play with Caulfield, you now have a shot threat on either side of the ice. And that's what's going to make Montreal's power play hopefully better if they figure out how to get it into the zone.
And Hoffman's good at doing that as well.
Correct. So, you get Hoffman to bring the puck in. You got him on the left side. You got Caulfield on the right side. That box is going to be like, well, where's the shot coming from? When before it was, all right, the shot's either coming from Caulfield or it's coming from Weber. So we'll if the puck goes to Caulfield, we'll play hard on him. No one else is shooting, right? Yeah. So
he's another guy that's going to shoot. He shoots the puck a lot too, right? So we see that with a lot of the wingers that they currently have. So their shot totals, which are already pretty damn high, are going to go up even more. Like I said, Montreal, it's just at the center position. That's just what I'm kind of afraid of right now.
On the wing, they have the potential to have 40, 30 goal scorers. 30 goal scorers.
Yeah, they do.
The potential. With Caulfield, Anderson could probably go there if he's paired up with the right people.
Yep.
Gallagher and Huffman have already scored 30. You got Caulfield, who could score 30. I'm not saying he will. I'm saying he has the ability if everything goes right for him to score his 30.
I say he gets 25 this year.
And Anderson's another guy with a full season and a good center with him. He could possibly get close to 30 goals. So you at least
you throw in Armia, who will probably get around 15, and then Byron.
If Armia is healthy, if Armia was healthy his first 2 years, he was on pace for 20 goals. But injuries knocked him out.
Yeah.
But playing on a third, fourth line, I don't think you'll get the opportunity to do that.
Which is why I'm expecting 15 from him. And 15 from guys like Byron, maybe 10 to 15 from Lehkonen. So you got some scoring that's going to be spread out along there. Matt's right, though. The center position is the one that's the question mark. And it's not lack of skill.
No, it's not like a skill. It really isn't. But I really like how Jake Evans, his game has really evolved.
Yeah.
And for a guy that was a 7th round pick, for him to do what he's been doing, it's fantastic. However, is he ready to jump into a role similar to Deneau and playing a shutdown role? Because we saw with Deneau, it was real easy when you played against the lines. You played against the Crosbys and the Bergerons and stuff like that. You knew who the matching was. You knew who the matchup was.
I think you're going to see Suzuki in playing more of the top minutes in the shutdown role. Personally, I think you're going to see Suzuki in that role more than you're going to see Evans.
More than likely.
You're going to see it spread out a bit.
But is that going to shy away from his offensive game?
I don't think so.
No, he's been trending that way. So.
Yeah.
Right. And a big question mark for me, like I know we're getting a little bit off of the free agent talk now, but like Jonathan Drouin, like what's going on with him?
Supposed to be back,
right? Like, where's he gonna like? You look at all the wingers right now, and then the guy that they still need to sign. They still need to sign Lekkinen. They still got Byron on a contract as well. Like, where are you gonna put all these wingers?
That's why I think there's a trade coming.
Right.
There's definitely a trade. There has to be a trade coming. There doesn't have to be, but I mean, if you look at the lines, I mean, if you want a true offensive line, you got Drouin, Suzuki, and Caulfield, right? Then you got a second line of say Kotkaniemi, Toffoli, and Anderson, and then you have a third line of Evans, I guess, and Gallagher and Huffman. So you now have three lines with quality wingers on every line. Now you can't complain that. You can never complain that Kotkaniemi's not going to get good wingers because they have their top.
They do.
Their top three lines all are good wingers. So
yeah,
they do. But like if we start talking about matchup lines and everything like that, there's no way I'd be putting Drew on a matchup line.
No. I don't think I don't think that line's going to be a line. I think you're going to have either a Huffman or a Toffoli on a line with.
I think they're looking for another center, and I think one of these wingers moves for another center, or they go in the bargain bin of UFAs and they plop somebody out.
Don't be shocked if Montreal's still in on Eichel. Don't be shocked.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that we were going to get to here in a minute. I just want to finish my thought on the 2017 versus 2021 comparison.
Yep.
In 2017, the difference between that year and this year, these off seasons, is one massive thing. Prospects. The Canadians actually have youth moving up. 2017, they didn't have Caulfield coming up, or a Suzuki, or a Kotkaniemi. Excuse me, a Paling, Evans, Romanov. Like, these are young guys that are pushing for positions. People have been screaming, let the kids play. Well, here you go. So if you were complaining about the kids not getting any ice time before, and then you're complaining that it's like 2017, then I'm sorry. I don't know why you're complaining, because you're getting what you asked for.
Well, that's just the thing you brought up there, is people complaining that we're center depth we lose Deneau, we have no center depth, but then they complain that Kotkaniemi and Evans and them guys aren't getting enough ice times. Well, which one do you want? Like, you're not, if you keep Deneau, Kotkaniemi's not getting second line minutes. I'm sorry.
Do you remember all the complaining when Plekanec was being pushed out by Deneau?
Yeah.
I do. And then Deneau stepped in, took over. Now it's Suzuki's turn, and Evans, and Paling, and Kotkaniemi.
Yeah.
When were you ever able to name four centermen that could push for NHL jobs in a Montreal Canadiens uniform at once?
I think Bergevin, as I said, I think he's going to look at a trade option for one of these winger, and if he can't, he's going to look at UFAs. There's a couple guys out there right now that I can see. They're veteran guys, let's just say that, but they're guys that I can see Bergevin taking a shot at. One of them being Bozak.
Stahl for sure.
Yeah, Stahl for sure. But Bozak's a guy, and if you want to talk about face-offs, for his career, he's almost 54%.
But
you'll also look at it, like I mentioned, Eichel. I don't know if you want to go on to the next one.
Yeah, go on to Eichel, because it was talked about today by Elliot Friedman.
I think they're still in on Eichel. I think Montreal's playing the waiting game like every other team for Buffalo to realize you're not going to get the asking price that you want. And I do believe Kotkaniemi is going to be part of that trade.
I think so.
I'm okay with that. If you're getting Eichel, I'm okay with losing Kotkaniemi. I like Kotkaniemi. Yep. I have a Kotkaniemi jersey. So it makes sense that he's going to get traded. However, what I don't like is Romanov might be in there too. So
that would be more painful, I think, for team depth than Kotkaniemi.
Right.
So today, Elliot Friedman was on the radio, and he mentioned, I think it was in Toronto's radio, talked about how the Canadians had sent an offer in, and Buffalo responded with calling it a lowball offer. So clearly Buffalo has got a very, very high price to get Eichel out of Buffalo because they want to look like they've won the trade. But you got a guy with a neck injury who doesn't want to be there anymore, on a team that's clearly trying to tank. So you're right.
With a high contract. With a high contract. So I honestly, I'm with you, Treg. I think Bergevin's playing the waiting game, because how many other teams have the assets and the cap space to bring him in? Not many.
New Jersey? Maybe New Jersey?
Toronto.
It's always Toronto.
It could be New Jersey could.
But does New Jersey want to do a deal like that when they're just starting to come out of that rebuild?
Arizona could.
Not after taking on all that money.
No, but I'm just saying, Arizona got the prospects if they want to throw prospects at them. Oh, wait, no, they didn't get. Oh, well, I guess they did.
They just picked up some great prospects in trading a Kemper.
Well, if Montreal wants to get rid of a defensive prospect, they got this Mailloux guy that's supposed to be pretty good on the ice. So,
Gouli, Mailloux, Harris, the list goes on.
Norlinder, Romanov.
Yeah, and they've got a ton of picks.
I'm telling everyone now, and I'm not a magic ball. I'm not from listening to Elliot Friedman. I think Montreal's still in an Eichel, and I think I would not be shocked if Eichel ends up in Montreal. I don't think he'll be playing for half the season because I think he's going to get surgery on his neck. But I'm okay with, and I'm okay with Kotkaniemi going the other way. I'm okay with it. You're upgrading your center. You now have Eichel's going to be your one center, and Suzuki's going to be your two center. You got Evans and whoever as your third, fourth. I'm okay with that. And if somehow Bergevin gets it without getting rid of any of his guys, then I will make an altar shrine of him in my my Canadians room here, because that would be one hell of a steal.
I'm sure that there'll be more salary attached to any deal. Perhaps even a Drouin going to Buffalo.
Byron, maybe.
The Canadians have the assets that could make that deal happen. Suzuki is not going to be one of those assets. Caulfield is not going to be.
Suzuki and Caulfield are off the board.
Yeah.
I would hope to say Romanov too, but I don't think he is. Or a
guy
like Eichel. But I'm tired of these people going on about, I don't want to lose KK. I would lose Kotkaniemi in a second for Eichel. In a second.
Yep.
Nothing against Kotkaniemi, but he is never going to be the center that Eichel is and will be.
He might. Well, Kotkaniemi is going to turn into a really good centerman who's going to. And he's a proven playoff performer. We've seen it. We know he's going to step his game up. But you have Suzuki.
He does have more goals than Eichel in the playoffs.
So I've got the same number of goals in the playoffs as Eichel.
Matt throwing down the facts.
But I mean, if you have a Suzuki and you hold on to him and you add Eichel to him, that is a better 1-2 than Suzuki and Kotkaniemi.
For sure. And if somehow you keep Kotkaniemi, you probably have the best three. You probably have the best top 9 forward group in the NHL.
I don't think that would happen, but yeah, exactly.
I don't think it would happen either. I'm just saying if you could, that's why I would build a shrine to Bergevin, because that'd be a hell of a fucking steal if he got Eichel for something like Drouin, fucking Norlinder in a first round or something stupid.
Yeah.
But it's not. I mean, I know on Twitter everyone's saying it's going to be Paling, Drouin, Byron in a first round pick. That's going to get us
third round pick. They don't even give up first round picks.
So
come on.
If we get him for that, I'm dancing in the street.
I already know what the package deal is going to be. Ryder, Halak in a second. Guaranteed.
But anyway, moving on. Dvorak would be another good pickup for Montreal if they can't get
and
Eichel.
He's still available. His name is still being circulated. It's someone who I think could be had for a decent cost.
And that's Arizona, right?
That's right.
So they're taking bad contracts anyway. So throw him one.
Well, he's making about 4.25 a year, but he's a good young centerman. So the Canadians are going to have to give up something decent, like a Paling, a Picks, that kind of idea. Maybe even Lehkonen.
Done.
if you want a good young center who can win faceoffs, there's a guy.
Hmm.
Because he's got some experience. He does win faceoffs, and I think that would fit what you're looking for there, Matt.
We'll see. We'll see. Like we in a perfect world, they bring in Eichel, they bring in Dvorak, they bring in whoever. Um, but as the season gets closer and closer, if these deals don't get made, that's when you're going to see the Bozaks, the Derek Stepan, something like that. You're going to see a veteran guy come in, and they're just going to bet on their guys. Bergevin even said that he's ready to play with the lineup he has or with the guys that he has. So will that be great for development? Could be. It could be a negative. You obviously hope that if Kotkaniemi is the guy as the 2C, that he's ready to take that jump. He's got the win, and we've already discussed it. He's got the people that are going to be able to give him the points. He just needs to be able to get them the puck.
Yeah, I think they've got enough pieces to play a support role for the young guys, as is. But I do think they're going to be making more moves before the
and with Kotkaniemi. One more thing on him, like this is another guy that we saw when the games mattered most. He was in the press box, and he talked about it in his outgoing presser that he was disappointed. So I'm hoping that he uses that as motivation and comes back and takes that next step.
Kotkaniemi's biggest issue is his inconsistency.
Yeah, and that stems from his strength, is lower body and core strength and conditioning, which should come in this offseason.
And Bergevin said he wants more north-south game, meaning I don't want him to do too much out there, and that's what he tries to do. He tries to do too much. Play north-south. You're going to have good wingers. Just play your game.
And that's when he does his best, is when he's playing a simple game. All right, so we're going to finish off the show with the odds and ends here. The Canadians have still been busy making other signatures and bringing in a lot of local flavor. So all these lesser known players like Jean-Sébastien Dia and all those other types that we've seen Laval bring in, and these are all just depth moves. It's minor league stuff. It's all it's for.
I mean, they lost a few guys from Laval, so they're just trying to. And then they're all two-way contracts, and if they don't fit in, and this is going to push some guys that were in Laval last year that probably shouldn't have been down to the Lions there in Trois-Rivières. And so it's just basically, I think he's just trying to fill out the Lions roster now, if you ask me. So,
and he's doing it by bringing in local francophone.
Yeah. Well, they lost what, Blandisi, right? Blandisi left or Lucchini left, one of the other. Blandisi left. Blandisi left. And Jordan Wheel went to the KHL. So you bring in a guy like Dia, or D, whatever the hell you say his name. You got Belzil back as well. And he's healthy. So
Lavaliger.
Yeah. So you got Harvey Pinard, etc. Like these are guys that are going to be able to jump up and take the next step.
Mysak might be able to play there.
That's what I was just about to say, because he played over 20 games.
Yeah.
So
Caden Gooley might be there.
He could
maybe.
No.
Oh, he wouldn't be able to because he didn't play that many games.
Yeah.
He only played 4.
Yeah.
But those didn't count either. He played because I don't think they counted because he played because that little
WHL.
The WHL didn't.
That's why Mysak played, because the OHL didn't.
But
play.
I thought it was just a special thing they were doing for this last year.
But if you played more than 20 games, then you can play this year.
Yeah, like Trois-Rivières, it's a very good thing that Trois-Rivières when they have a team. It's gonna provide that organizational depth that you can go. You might even see some guys from Trois-Rivières, do the whole David Dare and anything and move up. Another one that's kind of an interesting signing for Trois-Rivières, they brought in Oliver Gallipo, and we talked about him a long time ago. He was brought in. Everyone thought he was going with the Canadians. He was lighting it up as a defenseman in the queue. Then he ended up signing with Boston, and that really went nowhere. And now, after a few years, I think with Fort Wayne, and now he's with Trois-Rivières. So it's a good thing to have. Is everyone's talking about bringing in more local players. And Montreal's really doing that with Trois-Rivières, and we're seeing that as well with Laval.
Yeah, and Belpedio is another guy that they brought
Yeah.
in, a right-handed defenseman. He has NHL experience. He can be an emergency call-up. He is basically there to replace what Fleury was doing. Fleury is that guy that they was playing in Laval and they were able to call up, and that's all Belpedio is going to be. He's the emergency call-up guy. He's going to be probably playing top pair minutes in Laval, giving Brooke a little bit of a reprieve on the defensive side to let him work on his game a little bit more. Because Brooke, I think, if he's given a full AHL season, I think next year he'll be able to compete for an NHL job.
If he stays on defense.
And he will, with the amount of people they've signed and brought in, barring 50 friggin' injuries.
I did not like that.
Yeah, well, with different coaches coming in now, so
that's true.
We'll see a different approach. So
I do. Sorry. I just want to
you go
say,
ahead.
There was some sad Montreal news today. Charlie Lindgren signed with the St. Louis Blues. Still
So
going
now-
to lose.
Clearly, we know who's going to be playing against the Leafs in the Cup final.
Yeah. So yes, don't forget.
Yeah. So Jordan Bennington, your days are numbered.
Yeah, because St. Louis, Charlie Lindgren always plays bad when St. Louis loses.
That's right.
Forget his numbers.
They tend to do it a lot when he's playing for some reason.
I just wanted to bring that up.
So Jordan Binnington, I hope you work on your conditioning this offseason because you're gonna be playing a lot of games.
The All Habs crew is very upset.
Yeah,
Charlie Lindgren is gone.
They tend to be. Yeah, well, he's been reunited with their other favorite player,
Jacob De La Rose.
Exactly.
But isn't he gone now too?
Yeah.
Oh no!
Isn't he gone from St. Louis?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, and I mean, we'll get into the comparisons of all the teams in a future show, but as of right now, all the doom and gloom that the Canadians are going to finish dead last, I think we can hold off on that. I don't think they've fallen so far behind the other teams that there's no hope.
There's still work to be done.
Exactly.
But the foundation is there. They still need to add some pieces here and there. I'd like to see them move it, or I like to see them possibly bring in another defenseman, but we'll see. I don't think that's a priority right now with the players they have. I think they're really betting on Weidman and Romanov taking the next step, and then Savard obviously eating a lot of minutes. But for me, I think it's going to be a trade, and it's going to be a center.
Yeah, I think as centers, they're going to be their focus. I would prefer it to be a big name puck moving defenseman on the left side, but they're doubling down on what gave them playoff success these last couple of years, and that's their heavy defense. So, and you look at the teams that have been winning the last 3-4 seasons, that's how they've done it.
We could always just flip PK Subban stick around.
You could. But the thing is, the Canadians have to make the playoffs before their heavy defense can be effective.
That's right.
So there's still, I agree, there's still some work that needs to get done. But right now, I think the bones are there for a good season. I don't think it's going to be Stanley Cup Finals season. I think we're going to take a step back from that. But they could do it. They could make the playoffs. They could look pretty good. Maybe win a couple rounds right now.
Yeah, there's teams within the division that have taken a step back, and we got to remember that they're going to be back to playing in their division.
Yeah, like Toronto and Tampa Bay and Florida.
Like Ottawa was just a pain in the balls, right? Buffalo has name maybe 4 players in the NHL that actually can play, and they've taken a huge step back. But it always seems that every time Montreal plays them, they suck. Same thing.
So we're gonna do. So Treg has to go. He's got jobs to do, people to mock, pants to find. So I guess we'll just end the show here. We've pretty much covered off everything. We're going to have another episode later in the weekend. We'll talk about all the the social aspects of the Canadians that happened this week. We didn't want to get into it today just because we didn't have a lot of time. So I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank everyone for their engagement with us online. All our new followers, thanks to Matt pushing the Funko Pops and all that. They've stuck with us, so thank you for that. And there's a new.
If anybody wants to sponsor us, like with actual money, that'd be great.
Yes, that would be awesome. So just send e-transfers to habsunfiltered@outlook.com. We'll be happy to take your money. If you don't send the money and you just listen, we'll do. We like that too. So all right. Remember to use the passcode unfiltered20 when going to Built Bar to save 10%. East Coast Lifestyle, use unfiltered20 to save 20%, and use unfiltered20 at Seat Giant and save 35% on your fees. Especially now with baseball season starting to really ramp up for the push. Save some money, go to a ball game. CFL starting up, buy some CFL tickets. 35% off of CFL tickets, what, about 10 cents, 15 cents?
I didn't know CFL was still a thing.
August 5th, my friend. Game 1. Owls versus Elks. All right. So I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank everyone for signing up for the Matt Smith Habs Unfiltered OnlyFans page, which is our big money maker. And please remember, if you are talking about it, so are we.